Hey folks, what's going on? You know what that means if we're outside? It means a certain short got over 10,000 likes, meaning Christmas or Hanukkah is coming a few weeks early, because it's time for a long form video. And tonight, we're talking about Absolute Batman issue number 15. So let's open up the bar and crack open a brew. You earned it. Alright, welcome to the bar, everyone. So, Absolute Batman issue number 15. It's the issue that pulls back the curtain on Absolute Joker, whose apparent real name is Joseph Jack Grimm V. And before we even get started today, most of this issue is Alfred explaining to Bruce who he believes the Joker is. Cause on paper, Jack Grimm V looks like your typical billionaire media mogul. But that is what issue number 15 dispels. It doesn't stop at here's a rich bad guy. The Joker in this universe is 5 ways fucked. Because this is where the truth gets ugly. Because what the Joker truly is something ancient and monstrous. Something that has clawed its way through history pretending to be human. And when Alfred tells Bruce about the Grimm family history, he tells him 2 different versions of it. The first story starts with Jack Grimm I, who was a street performer in Gotham City. His popularity as a street performing clown brings him to vaudeville, and Jack's success in entertainment leads him to take that money and invest in a theater called Just Kidding, JK. From there, Jack invested in silent pictures and managed to fund some very big ones. But Jack always prevailed by, according to those around him, making people laugh the loudest, and by 40 years old, he was bumping elbows with people like Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller. And despite all of this success, he was actually never one for the spotlight. In fact, he was very big on charity. Jack I was a major philanthropist, that much is actually documented. And even though you won't see his names on buildings across Gotham, he was especially devoted to children's causes, which made sense given his rough childhood. Jack I then dies in 1938 and is buried somewhere in the family crypt. Then, Jack Jr. takes over in the 20s and expands the business, investing in entertainment, bringing laughter to the world, creating subsidiaries of Just Kidding named after famous clowns. And like his father before him, he stayed committed to philanthropic pursuits, especially children, opening homes for orphans across the country. His son, Jack III, opens one of the first cable networks devoted to comedy and children's shows. In fact, he's a major funder of public broadcasting. Then Jack IV, who was born in the 70s, takes the company into gaming systems, expanding Just Kidding's philanthropy to global causes. Which brings us to Jack V, who is arguably the smartest out of all of them. This motherfucker right here was one of the first investors in online gaming platforms, the hardware and the software. Not to mention, he was a primary backer in graphics processing units, which are the chips that the entire world essentially runs on now. And as this version of Jack approaches trillionaire status, he widens Just Kidding's charitable initiatives. And after hearing all of this, Batman's like, okay, Pennyworth, where's the fucking smoking gun here? What's so scary about this guy? And that's when Alfred is like, on paper, there's nothing scary about him. Actually, it's the opposite. He's the 5th chapter in a story about a family that's made its fortune by embracing that first love, the clown. The Grimm family has been helping Americans and people around the world smile and laugh, and sure, he's eccentric and likes to hunt big game on the remote islands that he owns, but billionaires are eccentric. And hearing all of this leads Batman to just be like, yo dude, I did not ask you for the story, I asked you for what you personally believe. And Pennyworth is like, alright kid, but for this we have to go back to the start again, back to that boy in the alleyway. See, cause the young Jack Grimm that was the clown that performed outside of a dentist office, he was performing in the 1880s, right after they had introduced nitrous oxide into dentistry, and it was rumored that Jack would sneak in, leak the gas into the alleyway, and make people laugh. But also, nitrous oxide makes people suggestible, so on top of that, they would also give him all of their money. But the most egregious thing in the dirty history of Jacks 1 through 5 has to be Jack IV. Because this motherfucker is single-handedly responsible for the console wars. See, what Pennyworth believes is that Grimm has been playing both sides from the very beginning. In fact, the Grimm family might be the most powerful crime family in history. They play everybody against each other and profit off the chaos of the day. They're not loyal to a country, no principles, nothing but power. And after all of that is explained to us, once again Alfred leads us astray by saying that's what he reported to MI6, which pisses off Batman once again, because he doesn't care about what Pennyworth has reported to his bosses or what everybody around the world believes Jack Grimm truly is. He wants to know what Alfred actually believes. And that is when issue 15 pivots to Jack Grimm on one of his private islands. See, Grimm is hunting a man that's been stranded on there for 30 plus years. In fact, this man Harvey is one of Alfred's friends. And when Harvey sees another person on the island, he gets super excited. That is until he realizes the person that came to the island is the same guy that left him there 30 years ago. The added caveat that threw him off was the fact that he hasn't aged one day. And if you're wondering why, well, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. Because when he sees Harvey, he smiles at him and then tells him to run. Because that is when Jack Grimm begins to morph into whatever abomination, straight up fucking monster that this is. And right before the story shows the Joker ripping Harvey apart, it cuts back to Bruce and Alfred, because Bruce is pissed. He's been asking a simple question, and if he doesn't get it answered, he's gonna break Pennyworth's face. And the reason why Alfred doesn't want to tell Bruce is because in his mind, and honestly in reality, it sounds fucking crazy. Because when we go back to that alleyway one more time, back to that clown, we find out that many people in that film died soon after it was shot. But how they died is the telltale sign of the Joker. Because when the bodies of the people were found, they were twisted in pain, grinning. And later, autopsies were done and found that poison was absorbed through the skin by possibly shaking the gloved hand of a small boy. Because if all of you want to know what Alfred truly believes, he thinks that there's a darker project at play. And my guy Alfred has records of Grimm's investments in some of the most deadliest inventions of the past 100 years, from the atom bomb to bioweapons. And if you investigate him and you cross him, you will end up on one of his islands getting eaten 30 years later like Alfred's friend Harvey. But believe it or not, all of that aside, that isn't the worst thing that he does. The worst part is what he does to children, because the Joker has found a way to use a child's cells to create an elixir that prolongs his life. Meaning, what Alfred Pennyworth truly believes is that there is no Jack the First, Jack the Second, Jack the Third, Jack the Fourth, or Jack the Fifth. There's only ever been one Jack Grimm. Maybe it's infernal science, maybe it's a dark pact, Alfred doesn't know, maybe it's both, but one thing that he does know is that the Joker is something terrible, a living horror. Not a man who never laughs, but a beast that is always laughing at us. So, there you have it, the origin of Absolute Joker according to Alfred Pennyworth. Though if you do want to know what happens at the very end of the story, the Joker goes back to his mansion where it turns out he has a butler and a Batcave, showing us that he's essentially the Bruce Wayne of Earth Alpha. Also, if you're not reading the rest of the Absolute titles, this is the issue that makes Batman aware of Absolute Wonder Woman's existence. And that issue is something that I've been looking forward to ever since it was announced. Anyways, I'd like to thank you all for coming by the bar. It's been fun doing a long form video every now and then. And for issue 15 of Absolute Batman, that kind of felt very fitting. I love what they're doing with this version of the Joker. And honestly, it really feels like Scott Snyder is going back to that original idea of the Joker being this, eldritch horror that's existed longer than Gotham itself. I'm glad that idea never disappeared and now has more of a foothold in the Absolute universe. But there you have it, the origin of Absolute Joker. And if you enjoyed this one, be sure to leave a like and leave a suggestion for a Christmas comic for me to cover later this month. Also, if you've been drinking or smoking, always be responsible when operating heavy machinery. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later. Cheers.